Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive into the course. So many people reach out about wanting to hear more about Lesson 56. And Lesson 56 is a review of Lessons 26 through 30.
Right. Yeah, those review lessons are always like little gems.
You can go back to any of these ideas.
Absolutely.
And find something new and see things in a new way. Just to kind of set the stage for everyone, Lessons 26 through 30.
Right.
We've got my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. That's 26.
Okay.
27 is above all else I want to see. 28 is above all else, I want to see things differently.
Okay.
29, God is in everything I see.
Right.
And lastly, 30, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. We had a lot of questions about these lessons and how they all kind of work together.
Okay.
So we're going to jump into those right after this.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Let's go. We're tackling a question from one of our listeners about a concept that's, well, it's really at the heart of A Course in Miracles.
It's a big one, for sure.
Invulnerability. We're going to be looking closely at Lesson 26. My attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability. How can I know who I am when I see myself as under constant attack?
Okay.
Pain, illness, loss, age, and death seem to threaten me.
Right.
All my hopes and wishes and plans seem to be at the mercy of a world I cannot control.
Yeah.
Yet perfect security and complete fulfillment are my inheritance.
Interesting.
I have tried to give my inheritance away in exchange for the world I see, but God has kept my inheritance safe for me. My own real thoughts will teach me what it is. And it's particularly relevant to the question we received from a listener.
Let's hear it.
They write, how can I feel invulnerable when I experience real pain and suffering from cancer?
Wow.
I think it's a question many of us can relate to, whether we're facing cancer or any other kind of hardship.
Absolutely. It's that feeling of like, how can I be truly safe, truly okay when there's so much pain in my life?
So how would you address this listener's question from the perspective of A Course in Miracles?
Well, I think it's important to start by acknowledging that, A Course in Miracles doesn't deny the reality of physical pain or illness, for that matter.
Right.
It's not about pretending that these things don't exist.
It's not about, just putting on a happy face and ignoring what's going on.
Right. But what it does encourage us to do is to really examine the nature of suffering.
Oh.
So, while pain might be like a signal from the body, the suffering part, that comes from our thoughts, our interpretations about that pain.
So it's like the pain might be unavoidable, but the suffering, we have some choice in that.
Exactly. That's a key distinction A Course in Miracles really emphasizes.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So when this listener is talking about feeling vulnerable in the face of cancer, is it that sense of suffering, that identification with the pain, that's creating that feeling of vulnerability?
I think so. I mean, it's like if we believe that our well-being, our very sense of self is tied up in this physical body and its experiences, then of course pain and illness are going to feel like threats.
Right, because it's like our foundation is being shaken.
Exactly.
Okay. So how does Lesson 26 then address that? Where does this idea of invulnerability fit into all of this?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because the lesson starts off by talking about these attack thoughts.
Yeah, my attack thoughts are attacking my invulnerability part.
Exactly. And I think what that's pointing to is that these thoughts, these fears, these doubts, they're not actually attacking our true self. Our true self, like our essence, it's invulnerable.
Okay, so it's like those thoughts are aiming at the wrong target.
Exactly. And, it goes on to talk about this inheritance.
Right.
Perfect security and complete fulfillment are my inheritance.
So what is that inheritance exactly?
It's that invulnerable self. It's that state of being that is untouched by the world's ups and downs.
It's like our true nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's who we really are beneath all the layers of fear and identification with the body and the ego.
So if that's our inheritance, why do we feel so vulnerable? Especially when something like cancer comes along.
Because, like we were saying before, we've chosen to identify with this limited, ego-driven self.
Right.
And the ego, it thrives on fear. It thrives on separation. It uses pain to reinforce its narrative of, you're vulnerable, you're not safe, you're not okay.
So it's like the ego is using the pain to keep us trapped in that cycle of fear and vulnerability.
Exactly. It's like, see, I told you, you're not really invulnerable. Look what's happening to you.
Oh, I see. So what can we do about it? How do we break free from that?
Well, Lesson chapter 6, I think it gives us some clues. It talks about our real thoughts.
Right. My own real thoughts will teach me what it is.
And I think those real thoughts, they're the thoughts that come from a place of love, a place of forgiveness, a place of connection with our inner guidance. And it's not about denying the pain. It's not about pretending it's not there, but it's about changing our relationship to it.
If this listener is listening, what would your final takeaway be for them? What could they hold on to from lesson 26?
I would say, remember that this experience, this pain, it doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can actually be an invitation to remember who you really are, to claim that inheritance of perfect peace and unwavering invulnerability that's always been yours.
I think that's a beautiful message to end on. Looking at lesson 27. Our listener is wondering about how to make the wisdom from lesson 27 more of a consistent part of their experience. So before we get into all that, why don't we just ground ourselves in the lesson itself?
Sounds good.
Lesson 27.
Let's hear it.
Above all else I want to see. Recognizing that what I see reflects what I think I am, I realize that vision is my greatest need. The world I see attests to the fearful nature of the self-image I have made.
Yeah.
If I would remember who I am, it is essential that I let this image of myself go. As it is replaced by truth, vision will surely be given me. And with this vision, I will look upon the world and on myself with charity and love. It's like this whole idea that what we see out there, it's not really about the world out there. It's like a mirror reflecting back our own internal
the baggage we carry around.
And the lesson saying, if we want to see things differently, really see with clarity and love, we got to change that inner landscape. Okay, so how does this tie into our listener's question?
Well, I think their question is a really common one for students of A Course in Miracles.
I was going to say, I bet we're not the only ones wondering about this.
Not at all, haha. And luckily, the Course actually offers some clues within the text itself.
Think about those early lessons, the ones we've already spent time with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of repetition, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like you're doing the same phrases over and over. Nothing I see means anything. I am determined to see.
It's like they're trying to drill those ideas right into our brain.
Course is highlighting the need for consistent daily practice. So how does that connect to forgiveness? That's a big theme in those early lessons.
Forgiveness is presented as a practice. Something we do consistently, day after day, not just a one-time thing like, okay, I've forgiven that. It's like, look, if you can practice forgiveness every day, you can apply any of these principles with the same dedication. So when our listener asks about consistent application, they're hitting on something really fundamental to the whole process of A Course in Miracles.
It's not just about intellectual understanding, it's about putting it into action day after day.
Right. And those fleeting moments of clarity that they mentioned, those might actually be glimpses of true vision starting to break through.
Oh, wow. So they're like little signs we're on the right track.
Exactly. And the more we practice, the more those glimpses will happen. They'll last longer, and eventually that clarity will become more and more our natural way of seeing.
That's pretty encouraging. All right, so we're back.
We're going to be taking a look at lesson 28.
And we also have a listener question. So lesson 28 says, above all else, I want to see things differently. The world I see holds my fearful self-image in place and guarantees its continuance. While I see the world as I see it now, truth cannot enter my awareness. I would let the door behind this world be opened for me, that I may look past it to the world that reflects the love of God. So we got this question from a listener, and the listener asks, what practical steps can I take to consistently let the door behind this world be open?
Well, one of the things that the Course really emphasizes is forgiveness.
Okay.
And it talks about forgiveness not as condoning actions, but as releasing the judgments we hold that cloud our perception.
So are we talking about forgiving other people?
Both, forgiving others, forgiving ourselves. Because a lot of times we hold judgments against ourselves too that keep us trapped in that limited perception.
So it's like a daily practice.
It really is a daily practice.
What else can we do to really open that door to a different way of seeing?
Well, the Course also gives us all these lessons, these exercises to practice. And they're really designed to train our minds, to help us shift from fear to love. And as we consistently practice with these lessons, we start to weaken the ego's hold on our perception.
Anything else?
Well, one of the most powerful things we can do is remember that we don't have to do this alone. That there's a higher power, a wisdom within us.
Like the Holy Spirit.
Exactly, the Holy Spirit. That's what the lesson was referring to as letting the door behind this world be open.
So it sounds like it all works together. The willingness, the forgiveness, the practice.
It's all interconnected.
So as you're going about your day to day, think about how you can apply even just one of these steps to a situation that's causing you stress or challenging your perception.
Yeah, just notice what happens when you make that choice to see things differently.
Looking at lesson 29. And we also got a really interesting listener question about, applying the lesson to some difficult interactions.
It's always a good topic.
Yeah. So why don't we jump right in and actually read lesson 29 verbatim.
Okay.
God is in everything I see. Behind every image I have made, the truth remains unchanged. Behind every veil I have drawn across the face of love, its light remains undimmed. And beyond all my insane wishes is my will united with the will of my Father. God is still everywhere and in everything forever, and we who are part of him will yet look past all appearances and recognize the truth beyond them all.
Wow.
A listener wrote in with a question: how does the concept of God in everything influence my interactions with people who exhibit harmful or unloving behavior?
Yeah.
It's really easy to see God in like a beautiful sunset or a newborn baby or something.
Right.
But what about when we're confronted with negativity?
The Course, I think, really asks us to shift our perspective radically in those moments.
Okay, how so?
It encourages us to look beyond, the ego's illusions and, try to recognize that divine spark, even in those who appear to be acting, out of fear or anger.
So instead of labeling their actions as like harmful, we're encouraged to maybe see them as like a distorted expression of that same love that resides within us all.
Yeah. I think that's one way to look at it.
I mean, it's a pretty big shift in perspective, right?
It is.
But the Course teaches that the world we see is actually a reflection of our internal state.
Absolutely.
So if we're perceiving something as negative, it might be a projection of our own, maybe our own fears, our own unresolved issues.
And that's where the Course, encourages us to sort of turn inward and say, okay, what within me is being reflected in this situation.
Yeah. So instead of like blaming the other person, we start to look at ourselves and ask why we're having this reaction.
It's a shift from blame to self-reflection.
And that opens the door to forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about forgiveness in the context of the Course, it's not about condoning harmful action.
Right. It's not about saying it's okay.
No.
It's more about, I think, releasing judgment and trying to recognize the Christ in everyone.
Even those who appear unloving. But the question is, how do we actually put this into practice?
Right.
Like, it's one thing to kind of understand it intellectually.
Yeah.
But it's another to actually live it. Mm-hmm. What's the first step?
I think the Course offers some practical tools to help us on this journey.
Okay.
And, well, for one thing, we have to become aware of our own projections.
Okay.
If we're perceiving harm, it might just be reflecting our own internal state.
So the first step is to look inward. Mm-hmm. Instead of focusing on what the other person is doing wrong, we turn our attention to ourselves and we ask, like, okay, what am I feeling?
Exactly.
What thoughts are running through my mind right now?
What am I contributing to this?
And, the workbook actually has, a lot of lessons on forgiveness. And one of them is, I am never upset for the reason I think.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And this really helps us, to see beyond the surface and understand, like, where is this discomfort really coming from?
Yeah.
So we might think, we're upset because somebody cut us off in traffic.
Right.
But the real reason might be like a deeper fear of not being in control or, a feeling of inadequacy.
It's always deeper.
So, okay, we've looked inward. What's next?
Well, then it's about shifting from judgment to understanding. Instead of just labeling someone's actions as, harmful or unloving, we try to see the situation maybe from their perspective.
Put ourselves in their shoes.
Yeah.
So we ask ourselves, like, what might this person be experiencing?
Yeah. What pain or fear might be driving their behavior?
And that doesn't mean we're condoning their actions.
Right.
but it allows us to see them with compassion. So that's step 2. What's the third step in applying this concept of God in everything to these challenging interactions?
I think the third step is to remember that our ultimate goal is inner peace.
Okay.
The Course reminds us, over and over again, that our reactions, they're about us.
They're not about the other person.
Not about the other person. If we're upset or angry, it's because we're choosing to focus on the ego's interpretation of the situation.
Yes.
Our reactions are our responsibility.
I like that. Our reactions are our responsibility.
So we've got these 3 powerful tools: self-awareness, shifting from judgment to understanding, and focusing on our own inner peace. But what about those situations where someone is intentionally trying to harm us?
It's important to remember that, the Course isn't asking us to put ourselves in danger.
Right. It's not about being a doormat.
No. But it does encourage us to shift our perception.
Okay.
And to try to see the situation through the lens of love.
Instead of fear.
Yeah. So even when someone's intentionally trying to harm us, we can choose to see them as, a child of God worthy of love.
Even if their actions don't reflect it.
Exactly. Seeing the divine in, the barista who makes her coffee.
Yeah.
Or the cashier at the grocery store. The person who holds the door open for us. It's about recognizing that spark of God in everyone we meet. Before we wrap up, I want to kind of revisit that listener's question.
Okay.
About how, seeing God in everything influences our interactions with people who, exhibit harmful or unloving behavior. We talked about self-awareness, shifting from judgment to understanding, and focusing on our own inner peace. How do those elements actually, change our interactions?
Instead of becoming defensive or retaliating, we respond with compassion. We respond with understanding. Imagine, someone's yelling at us, right? Instead of yelling back, we try to see the pain behind their anger.
We offer them kindness.
Yes.
Even when it seems like totally undeserved.
Right.
It's so easy to get caught up in the ego's drama, react out of fear or anger.
Right. We're human.
We are human.
Right.
But remembering that, God is in everything, it empowers us to, choose a different path.
We start to see unity. We start to see love.
And that shift in perception, it ripples outward.
Absolutely.
Right? It affects not just our own lives, but also the lives of those around us.
Exactly.
Lesson 29, it seems simple on the surface.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty profound call to action. It urges us to see the world differently.
Yeah.
To love more deeply, and to live more authentically. It's a call we can answer every moment of every day.
Every moment.
We're tackling a listener question. But before we get into that,
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to read Workbook Lesson 30.
Sounds good.
God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind, in my own mind. Behind all my insane thoughts of separation and attack is the knowledge that all is one forever. I have not lost the knowledge of who I am because I have forgotten it. It has been kept for me in the mind of God, who has not left his thoughts. And I, who am among them, am one with them and with him. Which brings us back to our listener's question.
Okay.
They ask, if God is in everything, does that mean there is no evil, or that evil is also God?
How do we reconcile what we see,
Right.
all the bad stuff happening, with this idea that God is love and God is in everything? It's almost like the Course is saying, look, evil as you understand it, it's not really real.
So are you saying that the Course thinks evil is an illusion?
Well, not exactly. It's not saying that suffering isn't real, for the people who are going through it.
Right.
What it's saying is that evil is a consequence of a choice to believe that we're separate from God.
Okay, I'm following you. So you're talking about the concept of the separate self that the Course talks about so much.
Exactly. The ego, that part of us that believes it's on its own, that it's not part of God, that it needs to fight for its own survival. That's where fear comes from. And fear is the root of everything we perceive as evil.
So then God isn't the source of evil.
No. God is love, pure and simple. But when we choose to believe we're separate from that love, when we buy into the ego story, that's when things start to go wrong. That's when we create suffering for ourselves and others.
This is making more sense to me now, but I still have this question. If evil is an illusion based on this false idea of a separate self, then how does that explain things like, I don't know, just terrible things that happen in the world. Violence, cruelty, those things feel very real.
They do, and the Course doesn't deny that. But it would say that even those acts are ultimately expressions of fear. Think about it. When someone attacks another person, it's because they're afraid. They're acting from this place of lack, this belief that they need to protect themselves, this separate self. They've lost sight of the truth that we're all connected, that we're all part of the same divine source.
So how do we reconcile this idea that everything is part of God, even the things that look and feel like evil, with our human experience of pain and suffering and all those difficult things?
That's where forgiveness comes in, and this is a really crucial point about the Course.
Okay.
Forgiveness isn't about saying that what someone did was okay. It's not about condoning bad behavior. It's about choosing to see beyond the illusion, to recognize that the person who hurt you, just like you, is a part of God. They might be lost in the illusion of separation, but they're still fundamentally good, still worthy of love.
So forgiveness then becomes this way of undoing the illusion, of healing that separation, of remembering that oneness that connects us all.
Exactly. Forgiveness is the key to breaking free from the cycle of fear and suffering that creates evil. And it starts with understanding that everyone is part of God no matter what they've done.
So if we can really grasp that, if we can recognize our inherent oneness with everyone, it changes how we see the world, how we respond to suffering.
It opens up the possibility of a different kind of world, a world where love and compassion replace fear and judgment.
Lots to think about. If you're newer to the Course, you might have noticed something as we went through those listener questions about Lesson 56. There's this feeling, almost like some of the answers, the solutions the Course offers, they kind of sound familiar.
Yeah, like you've heard them before.
Exactly. And it's easy to wonder, hold on, is this thing just repeating itself?
Yeah.
Am I missing some deeper level?
Totally.
But here's the thing. That feeling, that's actually a really important signpost on this whole journey with the Course.
It is. And it's actually pointing us to something pretty profound about how the Course actually works. Because you see, the Course, it's really designed to help us undo like a whole lifetime of thinking in a certain way.
And that takes more than just, reading the words. It's like, it takes repetition. Like we're practicing a whole new way of seeing the world.
So that repetitive feeling, it's not a flaw in the Course. It's like the method itself.
Exactly.
Like we're slowly, gently peeling back these layers of perception that we didn't even know were there.
Yes. And the more we work with those ideas, the more we start to see how they connect to like everything.
And that's where the true transformation really kicks in.
So next time you're going through the Course and you hear that echo of a previous lesson, don't just dismiss it as, just redundancy.
Yeah.
Like embrace that feeling. It's a sign that the undoing is happening.
Yeah.
That your perception is starting to shift, to really take root. It's the miracle of the Course unfolding within you.
It really is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today, everyone. We'll catch you next time.